All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Amanda Marcotte. Amanda writes regularly for Slate, Alternate, RH Reality Check, and Raw Story. You can find her on Twitter at Amanda Marcotte. Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Amanda, you recently wrote a piece at Raw Story where you compared comments made by Ben Carson, who is in fact running for president of the United States, about the war on women to Cylons from Battlestar Galactica. And as a nerd, I greatly appreciated this comparison. Tell us all about it.
So basically, Ben Carson was saying that he was doing one of his classic Ben Carson gotcha things where he was like, there's not a war on women. There's a war on what's inside women, but not on women. And this is like his sort of shorthand for like this like conservative narrative that argues that legal abortion is actually an assault on women. Like they just kind of think of women who get abortions as being like kidnapped off the street and dragged in there against their will, because as we know, all women just want to have babies all the time. That's what we want.
Yeah,
right?
And if they're not having babies, someone's forcing them not to have the babies, because that's all women want. It's hardwired into the DNA.
Exactly, and so that's the sort of narrative, and it tells you how mainstream within the conservative movement that narrative has become, that he didn't even need to explain it. He just needed to kind of jokingly reference it, and the whole audience got what he was talking about. But I digress. He was basically saying, that the real problem for women is that we're allowed to have abortions because that somehow violates our rights. Now, I jokingly said that this makes me think that if you've seen Battlestar Galactica, I think it was in the first or second season, I don't remember.
It's early on, yeah.
Yeah, where Kara Thrace, a.k.a. Starbuck, is kidnapped by Cylons, and she discovers that the Cylons, who are the bad alien guys, have kidnapped a bunch of human women and have them, and it's a really brutal scene. It's really not funny.
Yeah, right.
They have all these women tied up to machines where they're trying to forcibly impregnate and breed them, because Cylons, being robots, can't breed for themselves, and they're trying to make human Cylon hybrids, and it's failing. And so they've got all these women hooked up to machines trying to do this. And Kara discovers this, and the women are being tortured, by this forced breeding program. And they basically say they'd rather die than be hooked up to these machines. So as an act of mercy, she runs around unplugging these women, and does so at great risk to her own life and her own freedom. So she's seen as sort of a war. She's kind of a pro-choice warrior, even though it's under the grimmest of circumstances. And I said that if Ben Carson saw that scene, he probably thinks she's the bad guy and the Cylons are like the good guys. And it's obviously I just like science fiction. So
Right. But no, it's so crazy about how, I mean, kind of the broader point that you're making too. It's just sort of crazy of how mainstream these horrible ideas and thoughts are, and that other than on left-wing blogs and left-wing news that this stuff's getting coverage, the fact that he's saying things like this should automatically disqualify him from any type of nomination or any type of public office at all. But it's not. This is someone, again, he probably isn't going to win the nomination, but he's still looked upon as a legitimate contender or something. But and he's not alone. All of the Republicans say crazy stuff like this, but which is the frightening thing, that all this type of rhetoric is so mainstream. It really is something to worry about.
Yeah, Carson he tries so hard to be glib that it just becomes very quotable.
Yeah.
But nothing he said is any different than any other candidate in the Republican race. 100% of them are making the same argument that legal abortion is in and of itself a war on women, and that the way to help women is force them to give birth against their will, because that's all what they secretly want to do. In fact, Jeb Bush was making comments today about how banning abortion was merciful to women or something of that nature. And it's like, I mean, obviously they're full of shit.
Yeah.
They know that what actually happens when you ban abortion is that women seek illegal abortions. Well, two things happen to women. They're either forced to give birth, which we have immense amounts of empirical research that shows is bad for women. That if you give birth against your will, that does not often work out very well for you.
Imagine that.
And because women know this, they will often seek out illegal abortions if they're denied legal abortions. And while that's safer than it used to be, it's still, iffy. And it's also an open question of what kind of, if we do ban abortion, what's going to happen to women who get illegal abortions? Are they going to go to jail? That sort of thing. So, I mean, it's obviously bullshit, but I think it's a very important kind of bullshit to keep track of, because they're sort of using this, we're doing this for women line as a way to deflect completely accurate accusations of misogyny.